And we're here. Hello. Hello, District 21 members and others that have tuned in for this very special webinar. Personal Game Changers, How to Purposefully Work the Toastmasters Program to Build a Better Life. I am the District 21 leader, the District Director, Carol Carter, and with me is the amazing idea man himself, Bob Hooey, who is not only a DTM and an accredited speaker in the Toastmasters program, but he is a past District 21 governor. So thank you so much, Bob, for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for asking. Always glad to spend time with my Toastmaster family.
And you're going to be spending a lot of time with us because at the spring conference, you are going to be one of our keynote speakers. Bob is going to be sharing some wise words.
To that.
What's that? Sorry.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. All you who have joined the call, you'll notice that you can't speak. You will be muted throughout the webinar. Unfortunately, it just gets a little wrangly when we have everybody's microphones on, but you can communicate all throughout the webinar, and we encourage you to do so. There's several different ways. On the left-hand side of your screen, you will see the chat area. And you can click the chat area, you can type messages, and you can be sending that throughout. So just click on attendee chat and type something in there, say hello to your fellow Toastmasters. You'll also know when you click attendee list, you'll notice that you have all kinds of emoticons available to you, little happy faces, little thumbs up, thumbs down. You can show us some love, you can clap for us, you can cry a little. And also at the top of the screen, you will notice that you can ask questions in the Q&A. At any time, if you have any questions, I will be monitoring the Q&A and I will be monitoring the chat area and trying to catch up with all of your comments and all of your questions throughout. So don't be shy, type away, enjoy this. Now I noticed that some of you did join by phone. If you want to stay on the phone, that's fine. There is an app. If you have a smartphone, you can download the app and you can participate in all the things I just mentioned, or feel free to just go ahead and log on your computer. You can mute the speakers on your computer and just be on your phone if you prefer that, or just use your computer audio. All right, so let's dive in. Personal game changers. The Toastmasters, when you come into the program, it's really your training ground. And sometimes we can get caught up with trying to be our very best at Toastmasters. And we've got to remember that it is a tool. It is provided to us by people that have gone before us and paved the way. They've thought of all the things that we need to use in our personal and our professional life. And they've packed it into an amazing program that just keeps getting better. We just recently launched into Pathways, and I'm excited to take that journey very, very soon. I've picked my paths. I hope you have too. And I'm looking forward to starting right from the beginning again, going over the basics. Every time I do, my skills get so much sharper. When I came into the Toastmasters program, I was very much like that little picture on the left, that before picture. I was shaky, sweaty, and spastic. And by about my 10th speech, I felt like that after picture. But that was just the beginning for me. Bob, can you share with us a little bit about your experience? What were you like before you discovered Toastmasters way back when? And now, of course, you tour the world and you speak in front of audiences. How many countries have you been to? 20?
54. I've spoken in 21.
54 countries, spoken in 21 countries. Accredited speaker, touring the world, making money at speaking, as well as still serving as fellow Toastmasters. Thank you so much for doing that. So share with us, what was it that brought you into the Toastmasters program? Tell us your story.
Well, I think part of what brought me in was going through a life adjustment, which is sometimes how you look at a divorce, that gave me some time to rethink what I wanted to do with my life. And I had an idea that I wanted to be a speaker, although I didn't have any training and I didn't have any perceived skills that a lot of people saw. But I ran into a guy named John Noonan, and John was a member of NSA. He was also at that time the immediate past international president. I didn't know he was a Toastmaster, so I had met him at some of the programs that Federal Business Development Bank had done, and I mentioned to him what I wanted to do, and he said, "Bob, have you ever heard of Toastmasters?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, Bob, just a suggestion, but you might want to hone your skills a bit before you hang out your shingle," which is, as they quoted me in the January issue of the Toastmaster, a nice way of saying, maybe you're not so good, but Toastmasters can help. So,
Right.
and I'm very thankful to him for introducing me to Toastmasters. So, and I went, I looked around. There was a club called Toastmasters of Today that somebody had mentioned was fairly good. And I went to visit them on a very rainy, dark Tuesday night. And if you want the whole story, it's in the Heart of the Toastmaster book. But I basically drove into the parking lot, and they met downstairs in a church, and they entered from the outside. And I literally walked down those 13 steps, and I know they're 13 because I turned around and walked back up and had a conversation with myself before I went back down again and opened the door. And that was my entrance to Toastmasters. I met Lorna Cook, who was the president of the club. That was Tuesday night. On Friday in the mail, there was a handwritten note from Lorna saying, "Thank you so much for coming. We hope you enjoyed the evening, and we hope you come back and think about joining." So I showed up the next Tuesday with a check. And that's where Toastmasters started for me.
Right. It's hard to imagine you going down the steps and going right back up. I cannot picture that.
It's true. A lot of people can't imagine that I am in some areas shy and was a little reticent to do that. But, I knew it was good for me. I had this dream that I wanted to do, and I admired John enough that I thought, well, okay, if he suggests it, maybe I should check it out. At least go in the door, talk to them, take a look, see if you like the meeting. If you don't like it, you can go home.
Right.
And I liked it. So
yeah. Very, very similar for me. I was actually coached of exactly what I was going to experience when I walked in the room. The person who invited me said, "I'm not going to be there, but this certain greeter will be there." And it was exactly as she said. And thank God it was, because really my heart palpitations were massive. It's easy to forget where we came from, our humble, horrible beginnings, and just how far we've come. But it's such an amazing program. So yes, going back to that picture, the before and after picture. Bob is definitely the after picture, and he doesn't ever hold notes either. So
no, that's because my hands used to shake too much. The notes made too much noise.
Right.
Actually, what I used to do is I used to hide my notes. And I still remember the one time I was at a club and I had my notes, it was a club or a district someplace, and I had my notes up on the lectern. And I watched with horror as the person who introduced me walked away with my notes.
Oh.
So I started taping them on with Scotch tape so they didn't disappear.
That's smart.
And well, it's the same thing like in my accredited speaker, my first accredited speaker shot. I literally hid notes in small card formats like this. They had rhododendrons on the stage, so I put one on one on the right side and one on the left side, plus one on the lectern, and so I could walk over and look like I was being thoughtful, looking at the plant, and I was actually looking at my notes. So,
oh, there's a good trick.
Not too many people know that, but that's again, that was just something that I did because I thought, my God, what if I forget?
Actually, some professional speakers do that. They they tape certain prompts on
Yep.
certain parts of the stage, and they have mapped out where they go throughout their 45 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it is, and all their prompts are there. So
Well,
this is
I think the biggest thing, and one of the things like when I'm teaching this is just don't let them be a distraction to your audience. Using notes is not a big deal.
right.
You know, lots of times in Toastmasters say, "Oh, don't use notes." No, just use whatever you need to be comfortable,
Right.
and just don't let what you're doing be a distraction to the audience. That's the way I look at it. If you're not shaking like you're sitting there like this, and the notes are going like this, that's a little that would distract the. That's the reason why you don't have change and stuff in your pockets, because sometimes you stick your hand in your pocket and you rattle a change, and then the audience goes, "What the heck is that?"
Yeah. When I know, Bob, when you came into Toastmasters, you had a mission, and I had a mission as well. I knew that my shakes, my sweats, my spastic movements were really limiting my career. So when I dove into the program, I knew what I was there for. I had leafed through somebody's Competent Communicator manual when I was at my first meeting, and I thought, wow, if I could do some of these projects with these people and get feedback from these amazing people who were all ages, all English speaking levels, all levels of reasons why they were there, some just to keep their brain active, some to find a job, some to move their career forward. I thought, really, I can move my own needle. So what was your mission, Bob? You shared with me there were a few really dynamic speakers that you had seen, and that was really sparking you to consider a career change.
Well, as we were sharing the other day when we were talking about this, 22 years before I joined Toastmasters back in the 70s, I had a partnership with a man in Calgary named Larry Darling. We had a thing called Seminar Systems International, and we would rent like the big auditorium, like the Jubilee Auditorium. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be in BC, but something that would hold 4,000 or 5,000 people, and we would bring in speakers. We brought in, the one particular one was Norman Vincent Peale, Mickey Mantle, Don Hudson, that kind of stuff. And I still remember being backstage with Dr. Peale and his wife Ruth, and he was what I would characterize as a typical little old man. In his mid 60s or late 60s, and peppery gray hair, and he literally very nice, gracious man. So was his wife, and he sat backstage, and he literally did this before he started. He smacked himself. I think he was making sure he was awake, but it was just a matter of getting himself going and getting the circulation going. And then he shuffled out on stage, and that old man, you've seen old folks, how they walk, they're not so sure. So instead of lifting their feet way up, they shuffle. So he shuffled out on stage, and for an hour, he didn't move around. He didn't do any fancy, calisthenics or things like that. He just stood there, and with the power of his voice, he had this really gravelly voice, and he would speak with enthusiasm, and he had these 3,000 or 4,000 people just enthralled. And I still remember sitting backstage thinking, someday I want to do that. And 22 years later, I came to Toastmasters and began that journey.
Yeah. 22 years later. So it's never too late.
No, never. And that's the nice part, is wherever you are, it's a good place to start.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. I noticed when I dove into that Competent Communicator manual, it had absolutely everything that we needed to succeed. Structure, supporting main points, best use of language, literary devices, gestures and movements, vocal variety, research, visual aids, how to persuade people and how to inspire people, be confident, forceful, and positive. And just looking at those lessons, I thought not only would that help me to be a better presenter, but that would help me in one-on-one conversations. That would help me if I was ever in a job interview, if I ever had to sell myself to the person sitting across the table from me, that would help me in my personal life. So what did you experience as you dove through you were on a different program at that time. It was called the CTM?
Yeah, Competent Toastmaster.
Right.
You know, I actually did 7 of them just because I wanted to make sure I was fully competent. But
yeah,
I figured if they took one away, I'd still be competent. But and part of it was just a matter of learning. For me, once I got in and realized that it was really a supportive group, like the Toastmasters of today, where there were some amazing people there that were very supportive. And so it gave me a chance to experiment a little. It gave me a chance to push myself way past my comfort zone. And eventually, by the time I got into my second CTM, I was actually even smiling. And I say that because people would say to me, Bob, you really should smile more. And I didn't realize I wasn't smiling. I was so serious about what I was doing. I wanted to be this motivational speaker, and and I think I looked like I was baptized in lemon juice or something, but and just, and now it's interesting. Fast forward, 25 years. Now the thing that people talk about the most is, I just spoke in Phoenix 2 weeks ago, and actually 2 of the people came up to me and said, you look like you were having fun up there. And I went, yeah, I'm having fun. And that's the difference from when you're starting and you're not too sure where you're going, and you're not too sure what you're saying, and you're not too sure if what you say is going to be accepted. And you find out that it works, and you start relaxing. You start being comfortable being uncomfortable, as I know you say, and to the point where you go, okay, I can handle this. I used to say to people, I'm a Toastmaster. I can handle anything. And sometimes I had to prove that.
Right. Well, and you said that you went through your CTM 7 times. I think I'm on my 15th competent communicator. And cool. I still learn every time I go through it. So I am looking forward to diving into pathways rather than the competent communicator again. But those lessons that you guys see on the screen, I just keep learning them better and better and better. Just because you've gone through it doesn't mean you've really got it. Well, there's always more that you can get from the.
It's funny. There was one year, I think it was probably the second year I was in Toastmasters. There was somebody who came to Toastmasters of today, and he was blitzing through. He did like his 10 speeches in, I don't know, 2 months or 3 months or something. Mm-hmm. I still remember Jen Miko, who was there, was one of my mentors, or sometimes tormentor, because she really held me accountable. But she said, Bob, there's a choice. You can blitz through it and become a CTM, or you can take your time and become a competent Toastmaster. I've never forgotten that.
Right.
And that's part of it. Just because you don't get it, because you do it the first time and you work your way through, there's nothing wrong with going back and doing it again. My first year, that was something that I learned. I was traveling in Australia, and I had a chance to do my number 5 speech in Brisbane. And Gavin Blakey, who later was at that time a district governor and went on to be an international president, was my evaluator and gave me some good tips, and I took notes. And so I was off on the rest of my trip, and I was sitting someplace, and I was reworking the speech. And I went to visit another Toastmaster club, and he said, "Oh, would you like to do a speech?" And I went, "Yeah, I've got this one that I just reworked." And I did 5A, and it was 100% better. And I went, aha. It's not just doing it once, it's doing it and learning and taking as much out of it as you possibly can. Same thing with competitions. If you're doing competition speaking, one of the things that you get from it is you start at the club, and if you happen to win, you go to the area and the division and the district, each time essentially doing the same speech, each time making it tighter and more interesting and more dynamic. So there's a lesson there that I try and get across to my Toastmaster friends. It's like, do the speech, get the credit, but maybe do it again, just to enjoy it. Like one of the things that I did again is I got involved with Tillicum Toastmasters in New Westminster, and so they met Monday nights. So I scheduled it where I would do a speech on the Tuesday at Toastmasters today and redo it on the following Monday, or vice versa, with the two clubs. So I would do it and then redo it, and I think that accelerated my learning curve.
Good stuff. Well, I mean, you look at the acts that you see on stage. They aren't doing that act for the first time. They've done it in different forms, different portions of it, 100, 200, 300 times before they ever hit those big stages. It just gets better and better and better. And there's, once you get really good at something, then it allows you to be a little bit more spontaneous with it in the moment. So I got to the end of my Competent Communicator, and then you choose electives. You had to choose 2 advanced manuals to carry on with the legacy program. I couldn't choose. I had about 5 or 6 immediately that I wanted to dive into. So I went and I bought all 15 manuals and proceeded to do a speech from here, a speech from there. I was all over the map, but really I was in there for the learning, and I didn't really make a straight progression. But at some point, after I got my distinguished Toastmaster and I worked through a few other things to see what else I could do in Toastmasters and how far I could stretch myself, I took a look back in May, and I did this little timeline. And unfortunately, the little red line didn't show up. The little red line started at the bottom left corner of this, of where my competency level was at when I came into Toastmaster, and my competence and my confidence. And it went, but not in an exact straight line, all the way to where you see that last entry, May 2016. And I really, I sat there and I thought, okay, the reason I joined was to overcome my shaky, sweaty, spastic speaker behavior. But that is not why I stayed. I was done with that after my 10th speech. I was through with that. But there were reasons that I stayed, and those reasons kept changing as I grew and I saw the potential for more. There was always more. So you see how there was the opportunity to be in a speech contest. There was an opportunity to be an area governor. There was an opportunity to progress in Toastmasters leadership. And there's different ways that you can serve in leadership without being in the trio. You could chair one of the conferences. You could chair a committee. You could be on a committee first. You could build clubs. There's just so much learning in all of these different little pieces. But I thought, okay, so here I am. The reason I renewed last month is I want more leadership skills. I want to do keynotes. I want to meet awesome people, because the people I've met so far are awesome, and there's still so much to learn. So what do I want to do now? And at that point, I built myself a professional goal, a personal goal, and a Toastmasters goal that I wanted to achieve. So Bob, tell us a little bit about your game changers, the things that really shifted your focus along the way and made you see Toastmasters as a different sort of tool for your life.
Okay. You asked me that the other night, so I got thinking about it. And one of the game changers for me was when I finally got my CTM. And I said earlier, I'm a Toastmaster, I can do anything, but I also asked myself at that point, I said, if I can do this, what else can I do? At that point, I had been away from kitchen designing for about 10 years. And I had joined a company in Langley, just outside of Langley, Aldergrove area. And so we have something in the kitchen business called the Certified Kitchen Designer. Very difficult award to get. Most people take at least 2 shots to get it. And so I thought, well, I've been out of it for 10 years, but maybe if I can do this competent Toastmaster thing, maybe I can do that. So I literally applied myself. I studied my brains out. I got some tutoring and wrote the exam, got it the first time, and which was kind of neat. That I became one of 75 people in Canada that had earned that designation. So that was a game changer for me in terms of tackling a fear and then seeing that I could develop the skill and move ahead. So that was one. The other one, that's probably really, well, let me tell you about the Area 52 one first. I was nudged into leadership by Dorothea Hendricks. And I name her. I've told her, she's heard this story. I've shared it at when I did the keynote at the Toastmaster convention in Calgary, the international convention. I did it when I was speaking in District 99 last year. So she's well aware of this story. But she told me, she said, Bob, I think you'd be a great area governor. And I went, really? She was an area governor at the time. And she said, yeah, it's a lot of fun and it doesn't take any work at all. And people like Carol, anybody who knows laughs because it doesn't take any work unless you want to do the job is what the truth of it is. But and then we had Dr. Irene Evans was our district governor that year. Mm-hmm. And she said, we're going to be number one in the world. District 21 is going to be the number one district in the world. And I looked at her and in my brain, I said, fat chance, lady. You don't know my area. I had Area 52. I had 5 clubs. One of them was my own club, which was in serious trouble, Tillicum Toastmasters. We had 1 club that was in really good shape and 3 we weren't sure of. So I didn't say anything. I just went to work and started doing what I could do to help the clubs and do what they're doing. And I started buying into her vision. And I got excited. The club started getting excited. Long story short, at the end of the year, every single one of those clubs was distinguished or better. Wow. Tillicum went on to be number 13 in the world in its category. And they're all going today. They're still in existence. That's a game changer. That I was able to take something I was learning and share that with other people and see them get it, and go on. And then the third one that you and I talked about was the Accredited Speaker designation, which I got in Palm Desert in 1998. It took me 3 shots over 4 years because I took a year off when I was district governor. I kind of figured I should work on that a little. And actually I worked on it a lot. But again, the thing about the Accredited Speaker, when I went back in the old days, when you got your able Toastmaster, you used to get a single sheet of paper with your stuff from Toastmasters talking about the Accredited Speaker program. Are you good enough to be a pro? And I had that up on my wall in my office for 2 years saying, not yet, but I will be. And then Margaret Hope from 21 decided she wanted to go for it. So she created a success team, and it was 7 of us that met every month for well over a year to practice speeches and support each other and whatever. So that following year, there were 5 people who were picked to speak in San Diego at the International Convention in the Accredited Speaker Program. 3 of them were Canadians and 3 of them were in that group. And all 3 of us were from the Advanced Speakers Club. Now, Margaret Hope and I have both gone on to get it. Judy Johnson did not. But that was the working together part. Again, that was a game changer of knowing that if you come together with other people who will push you and encourage you and sometimes kick your butt. I've told people, and I may tell the story in Kelowna. When we used to get together, we would do little parts of speeches and get feedback from each other. And somebody once said to me, Bob, that was really good. You know what would make it better is if you took your opening and moved it closer to the end. Which is a nice way of saying the part in the middle just didn't make it, buddy. But that was our commitment to each other. No fluff and total honesty, brutal honesty, so that we would grow. Because sometimes in a Toastmaster club, we don't get that. Either we get people who are being critical and not knowing why, or we get people who love what we do and can't think of anything help us grow. And you need the both. You need something that gives you something to grow on. I don't care how long you've been speaking or how good you are. You can always get better.
Right. Well, that's good. That's very good advice. Let me bring up my Slideshow again here. Okay. So was your path fairly straight to accredited speaker? Did you make a few detours?
No, it wasn't straight at all. I mean, I make it sound like it was just really easy, but it wasn't. There was a lot of work involved. I mean, one of the first things that Mark did was she said, well, write or call TI and get them to send you the brochure. Now you can just download it online, or you can go visit accreditedspeaker.com, which is the site that I created, and download all the forms and all the what's required and whatever. And to my dismay, I looked at it and went, oh, presentations outside of Toastmasters then didn't have to be paid ones, but they had to be 20 minutes in length. And I had 4 of them or 3 of them that were only 15 minutes. And somebody said to me, well, you could just count them anyway. And I said, yeah, but I'd know. And there's some integrity around the issue. So I had to scramble at the last minute to find 3 places or 4 places to go give a presentation where I could legitimately do more than 20 minutes so that I could finish the form and mail it in with in those days, it was an audio tape. Now you do it with video. But in those days it was an audio tape, and they literally duplicated the audio tapes. And when you were judging it, you'd get 12 little cassette tapes. And that was the Accredited Speaker program in its more of its infancy, 15, 20 years ago. But no, it wasn't smooth. And like I say, I went to San Diego and did not make it. And so I licked my wounds, went back at it the next year where was it? Next year was in St. Louis. And it was me and Dillip were speaking, and Dillip got it. I didn't, and I was heartbroken because looking back now, even after all these years, the best of the 3 speeches that I gave was in St. Louis, and yet for some reason the judges didn't like it. I still remember talking to one of the international director or international president who was telling me what the judges had said and suggested, and I turned to him and looked at him and said, "Didn't they like anything?" And so I'm serious. So I just about quit at that point. And so I was going into being district governor. So I thought, well, okay, I should probably focus on that role. So I did. That was 97, 98 when I was governor in 21. So other than working on my professional speaking and Toastmasters and still designing a few kitchens to pay the bills, that's what I worked on. And then for that summer in August in Palm Desert, I took my 3rd shot at it and got it. So it was so much fun, because I had a chance to walk across the stage in front of 2,500 cheering Toastmasters, which is that's a game changer. I will never forget. Plus, I've got the video of it, but I will never forget that moment of actually visualizing and then actualizing the dream. And neither will Dan Rex, because he was sitting backstage. Dana Barnhill and Joan Watson, I think was the other lady, both came up off the front of the stage and walked on. And I'm standing backstage with Dan, and he said, well, why are you back here? The other guys are coming up here. I said, but Dan, when I was in San Diego 3 years ago, I practiced walking across the stage. So he went, okay, cool. Well, it's just, the only thing I hadn't imagined when I practiced it and visualized it was the sound, the sound of people clapping and cheering. There were people in that audience that were happier about me achieving my accredited speaker than I was. I was just relieved it was done. I'd taken my 3 shots. I either got it or I didn't get it. I was already a professional speaker, so it was okay, Right. And but that was a highlight.
Right. So in preparing yourself to be an accredited speaker, there was a lot of growth that happened in your professional life and as well as your personal life. So just tell us how the process of becoming an accredited speaker changed your game outside of Toastmasters.
Well, I think part of what happened when you want to be a professional speaker, it's looking at saying, okay, you learn the basics in your club. But you're not speaking to 15 or 20 people when you're out in the real world. Sometimes you have 2 200, 100, 300, sometimes 1,000. I spoke once to 10,000 people. That's a whole different experience. Mm-hmm. And you have to be, even though you've got the magnetrons, and the funny thing is, after a while, you realize they're not watching you, they're watching the screen, because they can't see you. You're this little figure in the middle of the stage, and what they see is up on the screen. And the screen magnifies every single little thing you do. If you grimace or you lick your lips or you whatever you do, they can see it. They can see it. So you get to a point where you start realizing that you just need to be natural and be you. And that doesn't happen overnight. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things that leadership did for me in Toastmasters is it got me in front of larger audiences at area and division. And then as I moved through the chairs with PRO and marketing and education and then district governor, we're speaking to larger groups. So you got comfortable with larger groups, so that when I was speaking in the Accredited Speaker program, you got anywhere from 500 to 800 people in the audience, and so you need to be comfortable in a larger environment. You need to be large. You need to be comfortable being larger than life. Like if I do that here, you don't see my hands because they're out there somewhere, but you don't see them. So you tend to be smaller like this in the club and when you're personal. But in real life, you can have the bigger gestures and you get comfortable doing them, so they're natural. That it looks like you're just having fun. And like I say, I love it when people accuse me of having fun, because I realize that I am having fun. And even more so if they're paying me to be there. It's first time that happened. I was doing a program in Cancun. I was being paid to be there. I was the MC for 3 days. I was the host, and somebody came up to me. And she said to me, she said, "You look like you're having fun up there." And I said, "Yeah, I think so. It's December and I'm in Cancun and it's cold back home." And I'm wearing new suits and stuff. And I had my hair done and makeup because we were doing a 3-camera shoot. I said, "Yeah, I'm having fun and I'm being paid to be here."
Oh, nice.
And that was a game changer too, because I started realizing that having fun was fine. And having this be something that people see and like is perfectly okay. I love to have fun with my audiences. I love to challenge them. I love to laugh with them. I love them laughing with me. That's why I keep doing what I'm doing. And that's one of the reasons why I keep coming back to Toastmasters, like, coming to District 21 in Kelowna, because it's going to be fun for me. It's like coming home. It's like a homecoming. And there'll be a few people there like Huggy Duggy and a few other people. Daryl Froelich, who was one of my division governors when I was district governor, is going to be there. Pat Nelson, who used to be a member of my advanced club here in Edmonton, will be there. Carol's there. A few other people that I've gotten to know. It's going to be great. I got to talk a little bit, but I get to hang out with my buddies and get to know some new people. So hopefully the people on the line, I'm hoping you're coming to Kelowna, because we're going to have a great time.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the friendships that you forge at those conferences, I think they're the strongest. They've lasted all through the years. The very first friendships that I made in the first conference I went to in 2010, I still have those friends, and I've just built more every single time. It's fellow learners that are looking to improve their life. They're the movers and the shakers. They're the people that are making things happen, and not only in their lives, but in the lives of others. And that's exciting to be around. I showed Bob this map earlier. For those of you who dialed in, I'll try and do a little theater of the mind. So there's a treasure map on the screen. And if you imagine your journey through Toastmasters, if you think that it's just smooth waters and it's this easy peasy little program that you work your way through, well, guess what? All of a sudden you run into things that set your fight or flight mechanism off. You have to face your fears. You have to overcome your own personal roadblocks. So once you get past a few of those, then you have to face that resistance. And your own resistance is probably the most powerful force in the universe. It says, okay, we've grown enough and we're safe here and we're just going to stay here. and it prevents you from moving forward in your life. It is like this invisible wall in front of you, and it keeps you playing small. But if you stick in Toastmasters and you're inspired by the people around you, and you just keep putting one foot in front of the other through the program and move yourself forward, then you get to go on and fight bigger battles. It never stops. And then you learn how to fight fair and how to be kind to people that you don't necessarily agree with, and how you can all get along and pool your ideas and have a richer outcome together. It's an exciting, amazing program that not only shapes us as better speakers, better communicators, but better people. And I would say absolutely everything that we do in the Toastmasters program is its own little game changer. All those little teeny tiny changes in you add up to one big result at the end. So I made a little detour, and unfortunately, like I said, I made a little red line and it's not showing, but I made this really wonky detour in my Toastmasters journey. And now this year I get to serve as your district director, but to get there, I had to overcome a lot of my own roadblocks. I had to overcome a lot of my own challenges, and I had to fight those battles and learn to get people on side and work with them and help us to get on the same page about what we wanted to achieve, so that we could be going forward together in positive ways and make big differences, which I'm hoping that we make this year, and that momentum continues for many years to come, for all the following leaders to continue to build and build and build and have their own adventures and make their own differences on top of that. But really, it comes back to the tools that we're given in the Toastmasters program. And we can use these tools to find our voice, to listen effectively, to seek feedback, to be vulnerable, which is not easy, but it's very powerful, to constantly improve ourselves, to build others, and to take risks. Because no one's paying us to be here. There's no paycheck on the line, and failure in Toastmasters is just another learning opportunity. I guess the big lesson for me was push past it. Seize what you want to learn. You're in here to learn. So what is it that you want to overcome? What challenge are you scared to face? Well, Toastmasters is a safe place to face it, no matter how scary it might feel. Bob, what are some of the scariest challenges that you faced, and how did you use the tool of Toastmasters to move you through those?
Well, there's been a few over the years. I mean, within Toastmasters, I still remember, actually that happened even after I was an accredited speaker and moved out to Alberta here. I was at my club, and they said, "Oh, we're having a humor speech contest. We've only got one contestant. We need somebody else to compete, Bob." And so no, I really don't want to do that. I'm not funny. You know, my wife had told me for years I wasn't funny, and that was the joke around your house. Hooey, you're not funny. And so I thought, yeah, okay, sure. And somebody said, you know, and then the other person bailed out. Like there was going to be three, and then one bailed out. I said, well, you could win. What would it be like? And I said, I don't know. It's a novel experience. But so I literally sat down and threw together a speech in 5 minutes on a napkin. You know, you've heard stories like that, but that's true. And what amazed me is that people laughed, and they really laughed, and it was funny, and I won. And I thought, well, that's a fluke. That's cool. And so I did the same speech with a couple of minor improvements at the area and then at the division. And then I got to the district, and I thought, this is dumb. Like I'm not a humorous speaker, you know, I'm not a funny guy. I mean, I am more so now because I'm starting to relax and enjoy it. But, and the only thing I changed in the presentation was the title. Originally it was, I'm not funny. That's what I said. I'm not funny. And I proceeded to prove it. And so I changed it because then Joan McCauley was introduced me as, you're not funny, Bob Hooey, you're not funny. You're not funny. So I got a chance to walk on stage and go, well, I've been trying to tell them that for like 3 months, which got a really big laugh. And then I relaxed and I just went through my spiel and had fun. I came in third, which was higher than I should have placed, but it taught me a lesson that I can be funny by just being natural. Mm-hmm. And just letting it out, because that was always a fear. I mean, growing up, I had been picked on and made fun of, and that was a different kind of funny. That was an uncomfortable kind of funny.
Right.
But this was a comfortable funny where I'm leading it and I'm basking in the warmth of people sharing their laughter with me. Mm-hmm. Big change for me. Right. After that, my speaking got better because I started relaxing. I started having more fun. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I got up and I started sharing what I wanted to share. I had thoughts and ideas and dreams and desires and maybe a passion for something. And I started just sharing it, and it worked. And I got better. And I got better because somebody sort of bullied me into competing. Peer pressure can be fun, but sometimes it can be uncomfortable. So.
Right. By the way, I'm watching the Q&A and I'm watching the chat area, and I'm not seeing you guys typing in anything. If you have any questions along the way, anything you want to ask Bob, just go ahead and type, and we'll tackle those. I keep looking for them. Yeah, one of the things that I always tell people when they start out the program is to really get the most out of the Toastmasters program. You need to work the program, map your journey, and be you. I know when I got my manuals, I poured through them and I thought, if I could just do one speech every 6 weeks, I could be a competent communicator in a year. And then maybe I can change my job and do training full time, which, by the way, is what I do now. I'm a full-time trainer because Toastmasters. Yes, it helped me to overcome my challenges. I mapped out my journey, and it was just shortly after that we got Easy Speak. That was a great tool for the North Delta Power Talkers. I went in there as soon as I figured out how to log on and how everything worked, and I mapped out where all my competent leadership projects were going to happen and requested a speech every 6 weeks. Then an amazing thing happened. People would chicken out of doing their speech, and I was prepared because I was working on the next speech all the time. And I go, well, I could do mine. It's not quite ready yet. And that was scary. And that meant I powered through my competent communicator, and I felt like I hadn't done it justice. So I wanted to do it again. So I just automatically got into that process of doing my competent communicator again to get the most out of it. And I've worked that competent communicator many different ways. It was an amazing tool. But I honestly mapped my journey out purposefully. I mapped it all the way to DTM, even though I got really excited about the advanced manuals and was all over the map there. But I knew I was eventually going to get to DTM, and I got it in 4 years. And Bob, I think you were the same. You got your DTM as soon as you could.
You couldn't get it earlier than 4 years. You
Right.
had to literally be a Toastmaster for 4 years before you could get the advanced Toastmaster. It was, and I went through a similar thing when I joined Toastmasters of Today. It was in April that year of 91. And I thought, well, with any amount of work, I could probably do my 10 speeches by Christmas. And what I didn't know is that, Toastmasters Today only had the one meeting in December and then nothing till January 10th. I know that date because that was the date I got to do my 10th speech because I couldn't in December. And I told Carol, I said, one of the things I learned from that was sometimes leaving too long to work on a speech can sometimes work against you as well. I took a speech, my number 10 speech, and I reworked it and I polished it and I rewrote it and I rewrote it and I rewrote it. And as I've told people, I think I polished the passion right out of it. It was a good speech in January. It would have been a much better speech in December before I polished the heck out of it. But and the same thing with the Accredited Speaker. I mean, I honestly did not know that you had to do 3 manuals to get your ATM. I mean, it's over 4 years. So, I mean, I was playing and there was 12 manuals in those days. So I bought all 12 and I was doing 1 or 2 here and 3 or 4 here. I didn't have any of them done. And I went to apply and they said, no, you have to have 3 full manuals. So I had to go back and do 3 speeches real quick. So I got my ATM Silver really quick because I just had to do a few speeches. And then when we finally did the ATM Gold, I was right on top of it. They were ready. I just had to fill it in and send it in. But again, that's part of it. There's some amazing things to work on in Toastmasters. And that's what I think a lot of people fail to realize is that it's a good program. It's a solid program. And if you apply yourself, you will have greater growth and greater success. So I thought I saw a question from somebody about the accredited speaker thing.
Yeah, question for Bob from Michael Baum. Do you think districts should promote the accredited speaker program, or is it more beneficial to tap someone on the shoulder with strong speaking skills, encourage them to start the process to become an accredited speaker?
I think the district should at least make people aware of it. And one of the reasons and one of the things that I do when I travel and speak at districts, including next month, is I will talk briefly about my journey in that. But what got me started was other people told me that I was good at what I did. I just need to work on it, as I mentioned earlier. So, but what's worked in the past, like for example, with the accreditedspeakers.com, which I mentioned I started, there's a number of us who are accredited speakers who have volunteered to be mentors for people who want to follow in our footsteps. And it must be working because 6 people got it last year in Vancouver, and 2 of them were people I mentored. And a couple of them were people that Cheryl had mentored. So I think part of that is when I went through the program, we didn't know anything about it. There were 7 of us who didn't know anything about it, and we supported each other. Now there are people who have been through the program who will be helpful to people wanting to follow our footsteps and help you. We won't write your speeches for you, but we will give you feedback on what you're doing, and we will help you with the process. And that is starting to pay off. Like I say, I was the chief judge in Vancouver, and I had to not look at the candidates as I was walking across the thing and then going backstage to hand it to Margaret Page so that she could make the announcement. Because I wanted to just say, you made it, you made it, you made it. And I couldn't, And it was tough, but I was so proud of the people that got it.
Right.
And that's the best part is sometimes you get to a point where you've learned something. And I know you know this, Carol, because we've talked about it, and you get a chance to take that and teach someone else how to do it. That's the exciting part of being a Toastmaster for a long time, is you get a chance to take what you learned and share it with other people with the lessons you've learned along the way.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And that's kind of why leadership is so much fun in Toastmasters. Bob gave me a leadership book. It was about leaving your legacy. And this quote, Bob, I've got to ask you about this quote. Leaders are forged in the heat of reality, molded on the anvil of adversity, and formed by the hammers of life. Where did that quote come from?
that comes from lots of experience. A lot of people they think, oh, leadership is easy, anybody. And the thing is, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. The truth is, it's not easy because you're leading people, and people can sometimes be contrary. They can sometimes be difficult. Sometimes they're just doing their thing. They're just going where they want to go, and you have to somehow gently say, that's good, and I want to encourage you to do that. But for now, could you just focus on this? Because we as a group need to go here. So the heat of reality is you get into it, and I know anybody who's been an area governor or above, or even a club president, you find out that what you think the job is and what the job really is different. And by the end of your year, you're starting to get an idea of that's what I should have been doing. Oh, okay. But the adversity, you're going to be running, as you were mentioning earlier with your roadmap, your CMAP, you're going to run into challenges. You're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to run into detours. You're going to run into things where you will screw up or something doesn't work, and you now have to deal with the issues. But that's what leadership is about. Leadership is saying, okay, we have a challenge. How do we fix it? We screwed up. How do we fix it? What do we learn from that? The biggest thing you can do as a leader is to realize that you have lessons, but the lessons will be mistakes that will be repeated unless you share them with the people you lead. In other words, you need to get your ego out of the way and say, when I was doing this, here was a mistake I had. This is what I learned from it, and I'm sharing that with you so you don't make the same mistakes. Go make some new ones, because you're going to make mistakes. Go make some new ones. Don't repeat what I did. And the hammers of life is sometimes just life beats on you, whether it's the time or the energy, or there are times when there was times when I was in district leadership or leadership in CAPS, because I started the chapter in Vancouver. I was on the national board. I was on the chapter leadership council for NSA. There were times I literally went, why the heck did I do this? Why did I volunteer for this? I could be doing something fun. Right. I could be doing something where people actually love me instead of aggravate me, and hold me accountable. Oh, that's the fun part about being a leader. Once you're a leader, people go, yeah, but aren't you supposed to be doing this? And you go, yeah, okay. They hold you accountable. And the thing is, it's just like having kids. When you're a leader, people are watching you. That's the one thing I want to tell people if they go into leadership. People will watch what you're doing, and they will believe what you do more than what you say. And they are watching you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, there is just no room
and they will call you on it sometimes.
Yeah, there's no room for ego in leadership. It'll just get in your way.
Not if you want to be effective.
Right. So one of the things that I do train supervisors who want to be in management positions, and I always tell them that leadership is the greatest, never-ending journey of self-discovery you will ever take.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't stop. Just because they get the position doesn't mean that their self-discovery, they're it. They're never it. And you have to really approach it with humility.
That's where it starts.
Yeah. So Kouzes and Posner, they did a ton of research on what people want from leaders. And these were the top answers that came up in order. So number one, people want leaders who are honest. Mm-hmm. If they're lied to, they don't count them as a leader. They might have a title, but they're not leading them. They want leaders who are competent. And we come into Toastmasters, we're not necessarily all that competent. We learn as we go. So that's a tough one. They want leaders who are forward thinking. And if you're just managing, you're not forward thinking, you're just checking off the boxes and making sure you do what's expected of you. That's not really leadership. They want leaders who are inspiring, who actually make them feel like they want to do more, mm-hmm. and are caring. So it's not just about what the leader's goals are. It's actually about the people. They want leaders who are ambitious. So not just content with the status quo, but actually going somewhere, and supportive. Mm-hmm. And that's tough. So I don't think you're ever done developing in these 7 areas. I think
school is never out.
What's that?
School is never out if you're a leader.
Exactly. So constantly they say readers are leaders. And certainly in Toastmasters, there is always more that you can learn. And there are always projects to do. So even if you're not stepping up for a district leadership role, there's tons of leadership that you can take on. Our high performance leadership project is an amazing tool to build your leadership skills. When I took that high performance leadership project and finally opened it up, I thought, I wish I'd done this a lot sooner. I wish I'd done it right after my competent communicator. I wish I'd started working on it then, because it was amazing. It really, really sharpened my leadership skills. And I have started many. I've only completed 1, and I've got 2 on the go right now.
Well, it's interesting. Like I told you, the year I was district governor, we were in, where the heck was it? We were in New Orleans, mm-hmm. and the international president came in. We had a meeting with all the district governors from around the world. I think there were 75 of us in those days. And all of a sudden, all these manuals kept popping in front of us. And he said, this is the new program that came out last year called the High Performance Leadership. And he said, it hasn't been well received yet, but my challenge for each of you is by the end of your year, complete one. Mm-hmm. So I literally worked on it, did it. And then I think I mentioned here I was at the end of June thinking, oh, good, I got this. I should put it in. And I read through the back end of it and says, you have to give a report to your club. And I went, oh, no. So I literally phoned them, and because I wasn't going to go because it was June 30th and I was doing other district things. And I phoned them and said, I need 5 minutes on the agenda because I need to do this so you can sign off on it. And and Lutz, who was the VP, had said, yeah, no problem, we'll give you credit. And so I went and gave my report, and he signed off on it. I got it done within the year that I was district governor because that was my commitment. I had told him, yes, I would do that. Now, I don't know if everybody did, but a lot of us did. Yeah. And the fact that you're doing one and you've done two and others, it shows that at least it's filtering out. Whereas, like I say, the first year, it was just something new and people didn't really buy into it yet.
I hope that everybody, we've just launched Pathways. You can start on Pathways and you can continue on the legacy program. So if you've done your competent communicator, they're recommending that you just switch over to Pathways and just tackle that. You could, but not all of the Pathways end in a high performance leadership project. And I think it's such a valuable experience. So I would encourage everybody that's on this call to go ahead and get your hands on a high performance leadership package. I gave one to each of our area directors and division directors this year. They all have them. So if they're not working it, you can tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, are you going to use that? And if they're not, it was a gift to them. And I said, if they weren't going to use it, make sure it gets into the hands of somebody who will use it, please. So you can tell them that they can help you on your journey if they give you their unused high performance leadership project.
And they could be on your leadership committee.
Exactly. That's a CL credit. So I just wanted to touch on this because it is important. Leadership, Toastmasters is where leaders are made. And I came in for communication. Bob, you came in for communication. And leadership has this way of just kind of sneaking up on you in the Toastmasters program. But really, I would suggest that I became not only a better communicator, but a better human being by doing whatever I could in leadership in my club and then moving on outside my club. The real game changers for me were getting outside my club, connecting with more and more people. And the higher up in leadership that you go in Toastmasters, I saw, thanks, Mike. I saw these people come out of the woodwork that were willing to help me take my next best steps. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm being mentored by a past international president, by past international directors. I get to talk to people from all over the planet, Australia, Texas. They're all there to help me. They're in my corner and they're there to move my skills forward. Mm-hmm. Leaders, they model the way, they inspire a shared vision, they challenge the process, they enable others to act, and they encourage the heart. Wouldn't you want that of your best friend?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the people that you look up to. So if you want to be that person, then grab those Toastmasters tools, work them. Don't be afraid of dipping your toe into leadership. And for those of you whose toes are firmly into leadership, keep going, because you will never, ever stop benefiting from the tools that Toastmasters have of you and the experience. Dr. Ralph Smedley said that we learn best in times of enjoyment, so make sure that you are having fun while you are tackling the Toastmasters program, and make it fun for everybody around you too. Really, we all pay our dues to be in this organization. If we're not having fun, what the heck?
Exactly.
So just a recap. To take your Toastmasters journey to your next level, work the Toastmasters program, whatever program you're on. Work both the Legacy and the Pathways program if you've got both. Map out your journey. Figure out what it is you want to accomplish in your life. Make a personal goal, a professional goal, and a Toastmasters goal. And then work backwards. Look at what the Toastmasters tools have to offer and think, how is that going to feed what I ultimately want to accomplish in my real life? Toastmasters is a tool to feed your real life, to make your life better and you sharper.
I think sometimes people forget that. So, I know sometimes district governors forget that, as I remind them as I travel the world. Yeah. There is life after being district governor or district director. So,
absolutely. Number one thing, people are so afraid in the work world. I deal with corporate all the time, and they're so afraid to show their real selves, because they're afraid that someone's going to come up and hang them for it. Well, in Toastmasters, there's no paycheck on the line. So you get to experiment with being authentic. I challenge all of you to be as authentic as you possibly can in absolutely everything that you do, and see where that takes you. You might discover some things about yourself you don't like or you didn't want other people to know, but you get to work through it. And I would never want somebody to think of me as that shaky, sweaty, ridiculous person that walked through the doors of North Delta Power Talkers in 2010.
Wow.
I've just, I would never, we're here to grow. We're here to move forward. So don't be afraid to be you, because the you that you are 1 year from now will be very different. And I guarantee you'll like that you a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any last comments? I did see, I'm going to just check the chat, but while I'm checking, Bob, any comments that you want to make before we close?
Well, thank you, Carol, for inviting me to share some ideas. And again, thank you for inviting me to come and spend the weekend with my District 21 family in Kelowna. So I hope we have lots of people show up, and I want to meet all of you individually and hear your stories and hear what you're doing on your Toastmaster journey. Mm-hmm. And I'll share a few things that I'm learning and have learned when I'm doing my presentations. But I love getting to know people and finding out what they're doing. For example, I spoke in Beijing last April. Actually, amazingly enough, on my 26th anniversary of being a Toastmaster. And there were people there that were in district leadership, made a point of finding me in Vancouver and coming, because I said, when you come to Vancouver, find me. They came, Bob, that was amazing. I tell people jokingly that I have friends all over the world. Some of them I've even met. And that's thanks to Toastmasters. And then as I expanded from that into the professional speaking field, there's a lot of people there as well that became friends over the world. And that all started in Toastmasters of today. Those 13 steps have taken me to 54 countries, and I've had a chance to work in 21 of them so far. Not done yet. And the adventure begins, but the adventure continues, and it's not over yet.
Nice. Thank you, Bob. I'm so looking forward to hearing you speak at
Me too.
At a conference in Kelowna, our annual conference. There will not be a fall conference. If you haven't registered yet, do register. Don't miss out on the opportunity to not only connect with Bob, but your fellow learners on this amazing journey that we're on. And we are going to have a great party on Saturday night, by the way. You do not want to miss. Okay. So thank you to all of the people that were on here. I see Sujata said, thanks, Bob and Carol. Michael Bound said, thank you both for a great presentation. Even better stories this evening, folks. So nice. Thank you. And thank you to all those who tuned in. Hattie Abra, Allison Double. Is it Allison Double? And there were a few people that phoned in that didn't get they didn't get the images. So I see little emojis going across the screen.
I love that little helicopter thing, the helicopter thumb.
Oh, it was a thumb. It was a thumb up.
It's just the first time I saw it look like a helicopter, and then I saw the thumb up here, and I went, "How cool is that?"
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for being on.
I got the flying thumb.
Woohoo! Oh, there's another one. Okay. Thanks so much, all of you, for being here, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye now, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Bob. Oh, wait, there's a question. Wait.
Okay. What's the
Ansel,
question?
Here is a question. Let me just open the questions. Let me show the question. Oh, thanks for a great call.
Okay. All right.
Allison.
Thanks, Allison.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm going to end the call now. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Bye.